Alright, so time for a big project. Now this video is obviously going to be a little longer than usual because of the subject matter. I'm putting together here the Warcradle Scenics Tillinghast Manor. Now this kit it's a bear to get your hands around. As you can see here, I'm kind of putting together the floor tiles. Now the floor tiles on this are a little weird. They definitely could, at Warcradle, if you guys ever watch this, if anyone ever sees it, these floors could use a little bit better support. As you can see, just getting them together, you have to kind of flatten it out. And even when you flatten it out, I still had to kind of wrangle things around and wiggle them around a little bit. Even with the reinforcement glue that I'm doing here, I still had some issues keeping everything straight. But eventually I kind of sussed it out. Now obviously, as you can see, laying this flat is actually kind of the only way to do this. And the way I started out, I quickly realized that you can't put the floor together like that. So the next thing they have you put together is this stairwell. Now each of these individual stairwells are, you put them together one by one. And if you can see those stairs in the background there by the glue, those stairs actually are individual. So the stairs and the banister itself are they're separate pieces for each individual step. And those, as you can see on the floor there, you're going to put those floor tiles in one by one, step by step, from the shortest to the tallest. The individual steps here, these are fairly simple. Obviously, anytime you're putting steps together for a kit like this, it's going to be a little bit of it's going to be a little tricky. You got to have a little bit of finesse. But if you're patient, it shouldn't be too big of a problem to get everything together without too big of a hitch. So once you smooth the glue out, you're good to go. Now, as you can see, I've put all of the stairs together, and I had to, this took a little bit of finagling to get everything in and on. The back floor there is kind of an issue. This is me showing how the walls go together. So you put the individual wall pieces on each section at a time. So each panel is its own single wall that you're putting in. Now, this does take some time. It takes some balancing. It's definitely something that you will have to you'll have to kind of have some patience with. One big problem I've had is that on the backs of these, the laser did not cut all the way through. So you'll have to score some of the paper or whatever is on the back here. You'll have to score that and get that off individually. Now, once you have all of the walls in on that bottom floor, the floor is a lot more stable. But even with that, I still went back and I used my tried and true old trick of adding some glue into the corners to reinforce it. And this will make it a little bit easier to transport and to move and to shift around, because of the fact that those walls are going to be reinforced on their own. Now, this is good for the first floor. The second floor, as you'll see later, is a different story. You can't really reinforce the second floor from the bottom because it sits on the top. Fireplace was pretty simple. I did put that in off camera. There are some things that I did put in off camera because it was just too weird to kind of wiggle the camera around. The front stoop was a really easy build. You just kind of slot it together just like it says in the instructions without any issues. This is one of those pieces that you can get underneath with the glue, and you can reinforce it underneath, just like the wall pieces on the first floor. And the doors, cool enough, the doors work, and this is kind of the scale of how everything works. Now, the inner walls were kind of wobbly. So those inner walls go in the midsection of the room, and each of these individual walls stands on its own, but it doesn't really have much in the way of contact points. So you've got one little tab, and then you've got the glue on the bottom and the glue on each of the stairwells on that outer piece there. And this is kind of fiddly. It gets in there fairly easily, but the issue that you will have afterward is fitting the door piece in there as well. That's because that big archway goes in the center of the hallway. So I actually had to go back and do a little bit of shaving on some of these. But as you can see, there are, once you get it in there, it's not too big of a deal once you kind of slot everything. And the as I said with this guy, I had to shave some of the sides off so it would fit in the air, in the little slot there. Now this, of course, even with the shaving, I did have to kind of finesse it and fiddle it in there. Be very careful when you're doing this. It is very easy to break. Now the second floor balcony is part of the first floor, funny enough, and that little piece there goes on the front, and the columns go in front of the bottom door there, and everything just kind of slots together on those. You can glue it fairly easily without too big of a deal. There are some accoutrements like this, and these are to hide the individual the contact points and the glue points to make everything look a little more friendly. So the second floor, this is where I started having some problems, and I have since contacted Warcradle, and they said they were going to help me fix it, which is great. I really appreciate it. They were really quick to respond. They were quick to say, hey, we will help you, let's get this fixed, tell us what's going on. So I gave them all the data, all the information, and they said they were going to help me fix it. I believe they're going to send me, I'm not sure if they're going to send me the sprue pieces that were incorrect or if they're going to send me a whole nother kit. I really don't even know at this point, but anything is better than a broken kit, So these walls don't have that outer lip. There is a piece that goes on the bottom, but it goes on in a very odd location, and we'll get to that in a minute. But as you can see with this second floor, you have to kind of balance the individual wall pieces against each other and glue it down. Now the roofs are very, very fiddly. You have to actually, and I unfortunately had to pull the roof out of camera here just to get it in, but the individual roof pieces, you have to put them together and balance them. And this is where this piece I'm pointing out is where I came to my first issues. That wall piece is too small. It doesn't fit where it's supposed to fit. So I can't put the chimney on the second floor yet. So what I ended up doing is just putting in the individual walls and the archways. Now this, I did skip quite a bit of this video, this piece. This is the trim on the second floor. Now this individual trim, you have to glue on one piece and then glue on a second on over top of that, which seems a little excessive, but it does add some extra detail to the build. You have to definitely dry fit this stuff to make sure where you need to glue it, because some of the pieces you have to make sure that you line them up properly, because some of them go behind others as you're gluing things on. Now this, I knew I was going to have a problem trying to film this, but what I'm putting on is the bottom lip that goes on that second floor. Now each of these individual pieces, like that upper rim or trim there, each piece goes on its own, and you have to measure and kind of plan out and make sure everything sticks properly in order to get it together. There's no way I was going to be able to feasibly film that, even finagling the camera, because of the way these things go together. So unfortunately, there's kind of a gap in my assembly instructions here as I'm trying to get everything stuck to the side of the house. So the individual trim pieces hide the gap between the first floor and the second floor. which is a good thing. That is a very good thing. I would rather have that than have just a dead line between the two floors. So I do appreciate that quite a bit. So as you can see here, I've got everything kind of squared away with putting those on. So let me show you some of the things I did have to do. So this is one of the trim pieces. I had to actually go in and trim this piece up because no matter what way that I tried to stick it to the side of the building, I couldn't get it to fit. There were also quite a few things that I had to actually cut off of the sprue because the laser didn't cut any of it, let alone cut all the way through. These individual little column pieces were kind of a problem too, because you have to, once again, dry fit to see which side you're gluing because some of them overlap. I also didn't get enough of these columns to cover the entire top floor because there's supposed to be columns for each of the individual sections on the upper railing. But the upper railing on the left and right side of the building did not have two of the full columns to put up there, nor did I have enough of the half columns to put up there either. So that is kind of another issue because in the instructions there were enough columns to cover the entire floor. So that, I mean, that's not a big issue, but it is something that I did bring up with them as well, that they didn't cut enough column pieces into the wood. And once again, there were a lot less than with the residential buildings from Gloomberg, but there were a lot of spaces on the sprues where they could have cut a little more scatter terrain. You know, they could have put in a crate, a box, something like that. They did include some furniture for the manor house, which is good. It's very sparse though. There's a table, 2 bookcases, there's a vanity, an armoire, and a piano, and that's in a shelf, a corner shelf, and that's all you get. So I kind of feel like they did include one blank sprue, and I feel like they could have cut some more furniture onto that blank sprue, you know, just to save some time here. Now the windows and the ceiling or the roof were an issue. I had to, obviously, as you can see, kind of cobble this back together because those really, really tiny slats that go on the side here were really hard to get off of the sprue without breaking. And it was actually the second one that I cut, not the first one that broke. And I was trying to be very careful with it, but unfortunately it was one of those things I just could not get it off of there without breaking it. As a matter of fact, I have another kit from Warcradle. I had to throw away all of the fences because I couldn't get the fences out of the sprue without breaking them, even with using an X-Acto knife and trying really hard. And it was kind of an issue. So each of these individual dormers, they are kind of a pain to get all together and to get them assembled. They look nice. The walls are supposed to, or not the walls, but the windows are supposed to swivel. I could not get the one that broke to swivel properly, probably because of the fact that I had to finagle it back together. These individual windows and the supports for the roof could use a little bit more reinforcement and some thicker wood. That really, really thin strip of wood that's holding this piece together is not enough. So that's another thing that I think Warcradle should sort of reconsider, is the sort of the size of some of the cuts on this stuff. And hopefully we can get that. I don't know if they'd be willing to individually fix these, those small gripes on this kit, but we'll see. So this particular piece, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get it to fit. I kept trying to move it around, put it in different spots, And then it hit me. There's an offcut, so the holes don't match up the tabs. It was a little frustrating again. I did have a lot of frustration. Unfortunately, I tried it on both sides of the roof, and it wasn't going to fit no matter what I did. So I ended up having to take my snips and cut those tabs off and then just glue it down to get it on there. Now the second one that I had fit just fine. So the tabs on that one were good. Hopefully, again, that's something that Warcradle might be able to fix. I am going to send them this video, and hopefully they will review it and have a look and maybe even fix a couple of these issues. I did try and reinforce these dormers. There is a bit of a gap between the roof and the dormers themselves, so it was kind of a pain. Now this part is, again, this is another frustrating piece that I think they really should fix. This is the supports for the upper balcony, the upper floor, okay, the one that's outside. I had those little tiny pieces break 4 times, and I was being very gentle with them and trying to get everything supported and together. This piece, this roof, you have to slot it together and kind of finagle everything and balance it. And once again, with the size of this kit, I was running out of room, so I had to pull it out of frame to do this. But I assembled both sides of the roof, and then I pushed that top decoration piece in between the 2 roof sections, and it kind of worked, but again, it was very fiddly, and it was hard to get properly seated. And then of course, once I was done, I realized that my wall section on the bottom floor there, unfortunately I didn't push it up enough. And this is kind of a problem because that support there that's on the far walls is on its own. It's just free floating in the air. It's not attached to anything, and I kind of feel like that's sort of an issue. Now the chimney, I tried to put the chimney together and then put the 2 roof sections to get against it with the chimney together, but that is just not going to work. So skip that part of the instructions. Do each of the chimney sections one by one. Now these are the individual slats. This is me just showing off that I was having kind of an issue with the slats themselves. Now this is, now that I've got everything together, and I do realize that I messed up that chimney piece, but this is an overview of what it looks like once it is put together without all of the furniture in it. That upstairs balcony, I couldn't fit the railing on. I'm going to have to modify that myself. I couldn't fit the upper wall on to put the second part of the chimney on either. So Warcradle said they're going to help me with that, which is a good thing. And I really appreciate them doing that. Now, as you can see, I broke the second floor because there is a piece of the stairwell that pokes over that second floor, the floor panels. The only other thing that I have to say about this kit is I'm kind of disappointed that there's no wood grain on the floors themselves. I kind of feel like that's a missed opportunity to where you could have had it look like wood itself instead of just looking like flat individual floors. Anyway, so that is an overview of the Tillinghast Manor kit from Warcradle. It was really a pain in the butt to put together, but in the end, it's a nice kit, and Warcradle was really good about helping me out to fix what was wrong with the kit itself. So anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Feel free to join me on Discord, Patreon, Instagram, all that stuff. And have a Happy New Year.